Okay, guys, that's done. So I want everyone to, I want 3 people, anyone, share what you all think are controllers, models, routes, and if you all got time, what are views?
Controllers are the logic of the app. So like, I mean, whatever algorithm or, you put it in the controller.
From my understanding, it is actually so the models get information and data from database or controllers. So controllers will send data they receive from routes, and they can decide where to send it. So they can send it to models, and it's actually in the models where the algorithms are done, the logical algorithms are done. Then the data is passes to controller, and then controller can, convert it into responses, I think. Yeah, and then for views, from what I understand, views is just representation of information. So something that we can see.
Cool. One more person?
Out of the MVC, yeah. Never mind. Yeah, it's part of the MVC thing. M for model, view, and controller. Usually they have these 3 in a basic server.
Yeah, you gotta explain what it means. What do you think it means?
M is for like you define the data. For example, if it's a to-do list, then you need to define what is a task. What are the things that comprise of a task. Then controller is like the brain of the server. Let's say how you should actually handle the input from the user. Like view is how the pages should look like. Then the routes is like, let's say they go to a page slash users, and then what should they see? Something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
The models
Sorry.
is actually the models is actually the structure of the data, right? Like the format of the data. Is there algorithm in there as well, or?
Sometimes the format of data can have logic in them, right? But yes, I like Kelvin's answer. I think everyone's answer is somewhat right, but Kelvin's answer, I think, hit it more on the spot lah, right? Because routes are basically the channels for people to talk to your web server. They are like the routes. They're literally called the routes, right? The channels for people to talk to the web server. Then once you go to your route, every channel, behind there is a specific logic of what is going to do. Actually, sorry, not logic lah, but more like a series of steps or ordering in terms of what you're gonna do. And so you tend to put a lot of logic. So okay, the thing with some people that design apps is they say, oh, controllers should have logic. Some people say, no, models should have logic. So simply put it, your business logic, actually, you can put it in the controller. This is your business logic. Meaning if you got some very fancy algorithm for your website, or you got some custom formula to calculate certain things, you can put it in a controller, right? Models actually are data models, like what Kelvin was saying. And all models is inserting data into the database, right? Through a specific, let's say add user. I'm just going to add the user with the specific info, name, last name, date of birth, whatever. There's no logic in there. Things like add the user only if, or let's say add the user only if he is above 20 years old. You don't put that in a model. I will not go and say, oh, add user, but in there I put a condition only 20 years old and accept. No. You must do that in the controller. Because models are really designed just to represent piece of data. Add user, that's it, right? Add user if 20 years old, that's something you can determine in the controller itself, right? And maybe you have a custom route for that. Add adults. Add adults means I check if he is above 20 years old by calling the model, get age. If age is above 20, then add user. I can do that in the controller as a series of steps. And these steps combined together give you one route called add user if above 20. So
yeah,
that's the key. That's why controllers are, like what Kelvin said, called the brains. Models tend to just be very dumb. Insert data into the database using this structure, or get data from this way, or update this data or delete this data, and you have a data model there, of course, but that's all it does.
Okay.
And then
let's say we
views are
use
just
like
views. Sorry?
let's say we use like a stock market app as an example. So in the database, there'll be like a prices and what do you call that?
Prices, volume,
prices,
whatever
volume, and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. So in models is where you structure that into like like the stock and volume, or
models are basically anything to interact in the database. Interact means add, update, delete, or CRUD lah. Create, read, update, delete. That's it.
In the models, okay.
That's it. Yeah. You don't do things like add this stock to my favorites list if the price goes up by 20%. No, you don't do that in the models.
Yeah, that's in the controller.
Yes, because models are just supposed to just do create, read, update, delete, and that's it. There should not be any more logic in there.
So like database is, you can say it's like a library lah.
Database is a place where you store value permanently, store data permanently.
Okay.
Any more questions?
So yeah, so the model is like an object, and the controller is like a controller which controls the model object. Is this like the
Yeah.
basic scenario in here?
Models are functions that change the model of the database.
I see.
Controllers control the models to do stuff in a certain order.
Okay.
And routes give the front end application allows them to, they don't allow them to talk to the controller directly because it's the brains, but then they say, I give you certain routes to do certain predefined actions in the controller already that I specify. That's it, because we got to protect our brain, right?
Yeah.
So we tell them, say, no, you cannot do whatever you want, but I give you certain routes that you can do certain things. Yeah. So by the way, this is not only, this is what you call model view controller, like MVC, but there's many other models. There's MVVC, there's MCV, MMCV. There's actually many different kinds of terminology out there, but I honestly see this is the most common way. Although I think actual production apps, even the more complex ones, it's not just routes, models, and controller lah. We actually got we got one or two things in between. We got things like resolvers as well. Resolvers come in the picture as well. So you got your, just know that there can be slight variation to the system, but this is the most basic way and it works fine also. Just know that. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Awesome. And now I'm gonna go down to, wait. This is another view of how model view controller looks like. And here we can clearly see it looks clearer. So the route goes to the controller, controller talks to the model, models controller, controller talks to view, and then response. Okay, so this is another view to do it as well. Now, routes. I think we all heard clearly what are routes. I put this picture because especially if you progress up in you become more senior developer, right? Designing APIs are actually not very simple. Not simple at all. This is where we come to not just programming, but we come to designing software. Programming software and designing software are two different things. Normally, the more senior developer will design the software, the programmer will program the software. It's like an architect and a builder lah. Building also requires skill. To build a house, you still need skill. But architect is the one that come up with the design of the house to begin with. So it tends to be a bit more high level work. Now, why I say designing routes is because when you think about a system, right? Who is actually using this route or this API? It's actually the front end developer, right? Let's say stock market lah. Or let's say Lazada. Okay, everyone knows Lazada. It's an e-commerce website. I can do many things, but I can buy stuff, I can sell stuff, I can wish list, I can add to my favorites. I can search for things. I can sort. I can filter. You can do quite a lot of things. Now, that is the user, but whatever is done in the front end needs to talk to the back end. How are you going to name it? Right? How are you going to design the API that makes it easy for the front end developer to talk to it? Because at the end, it's a communication. So when I say designing beautiful APIs, it's really designing routes in a way that make it easy for the front end developer to interact with it. And this takes some skill and practice. And there's no fixed formula to it. It becomes an art of it as well. Especially for things that get more complex lah. Yeah. Because some people can design API, but wow, a very long list of useless routes that nobody uses, for example, right? So API design is quite tricky as well. This is something that you guys got a brain a bit, I want you guys to take 5 minutes. I want you guys to try and figure out what this means and see if you can explain it. Go. Okay, done. I want 2 people who wants to give it a try. Explain what they think this is.
How the data is fetched, right, from front end, from the data that front end requester is fetched from the server, right?
Yes, continue. Fetch from the, what do you mean? The data from the front end is fetched from the server.
I don't know. I mean, like data from server is being fetched by front end, right? How from code wise, how is it how is being structured?
Continue.
So in the first part there, right, you can see that there's 2 get function basically. So one of them is for the first one, right, is actually routed to the constant the list.js, and then the other one it went to get.js. So what
Wait,
it does,
Alex, you try? You try and move it now. Can you move it?
oh, you mean
Move your mouse.
move my mouse or
Try.
you can see
Nice.
my mouse?
Yeah. You can move until where? You can move just to the end of yours, of the whole thing here lah. Okay,
I'm
you
not
can
sure.
yeah, okay. You now explain it.
Yeah. So basically you can see that on the I think this is the front end code itself, right? What it does is the first line, right, interact with this list.js file, and then the next one it interacts with the get.js file. So you need to actually structure it properly, like how the data is fetched from the server. Like for example, what kind of syntax or parameters that is needed.
Okay. Is that it? Is it?
Yeah,
Awesome,
that's how I
awesome.
understand now. I'm trying to see what does all this mean actually. Like,
Okay, no worries.
yeah.
Thanks. Who else?
I think on top of that, on top of that, for the list, right? So when you get for the first get request, so it basically runs a asynchronous function.
Okay.
So
Alex, wait. You share the you sorry, I mean not Alex, Clement, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you can control. Explain to everyone. Cool.
Yeah. So for example, let's say the first list.js get called, so you run this function. So basically is to run the asynchronous function. So you basically get a request response. So first we have a question. So as we run asynchronous function, so we have to find what is the question. So as you can see, it requests if it's success, it send the status to 200. Yeah, so it basically looks for the data, which is the question. So if it's success, then it will send the question and store the question to here. If it's error, you catch the error and then you proceed to the error handler. Yeah, and then after that, you export this list, which is what we found right here, the question back to the list model here. Yeah, and same goes for the get function. Yeah, the get function is basically somehow similar.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Cool.
From
cool.
the code.
Awesome. Anybody else wants to add in?
Can I try?
Yep. Wait. Let me. Why don't you share the mouse? Wait. I gotta put the mouse. Who is this? Kelvin. Kelvin, go.
Yeah. Okay, so when you see here's the app.get and app.get
Wait, use your mouse.
colon ID. Yeah, I'm using.
Cannot see.
Cannot?
No one can see it. Cannot see it. Waiting for you to control the screen.
Control the screen.
Yeah.
I am
now
oh,
can.
okay. Yeah, cool. All right, so we have two app.get here. These are two routes, right? The first one, basically, like when the user goes to the website, like the home page, then they will see this page. And the ID one, right, is like whenever you send a data into the database, right, each of them, they will have a unique ID. So let's say this one, the first one, when they go to the home page, right, it will list all the whatever is in the database. The user will see them. And then get ID is like when they type the specific ID of an entry in the database, then they will see that data from that particular ID. So if you look at these two, right, they have a try and catch. So if they try this one and then if they fail, then there's a catch error here. So it's the same for each route. I think they have a try and catch. That's my understanding.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, so the one at the top is the route, and the two bottom boxes are the models lah.
Route
Right.
and models, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, let's me see some. No, the bottom thing is the controller. These are the controllers. The models are models here, which is this question. This is how the controller is controlling the models. He is putting it inside here. He's saying, all right, run this model. Question of answer. So let me explain it, right? Basically, I think you all got the first part, right? The routes. Any get method and get at the path call slash, I will run this controller, which is a function. And inside this function, I got some business logic. This business logic says, this function list says, I got a request, response, and next. Request is what the client, request is what's incoming lah, okay? Response is what I respond to the request, outgoing. So what he's saying inside here is, you want to find the questions. Now, what is this question? This question is here. Now, what is here? Here is basically, this is actually the first argument of the list function. What is the first argument of the list function? Models. Why we can do this thing is this little bracket here, if you all do JavaScript, all it means is inside the models, I got this function called question. So he's doing what we call destructuring. Destructuring just means I want to take the function that's being exported from this models API lah. I mean, sorry, this models object. Models is an object. Inside the object, there's a function called question, and this function is actually a Mongoose model. Mongoose is actually a special library lah, that provides you, Mongoose is like Express for Mongo lah. You know, Express is run on top of Node.js, right? To make it easy with your life, right? Mongoose is actually on top of Mongo. Because if I want to do some certain function in Mongo, right, I have to write the Mongo function. Some people say, hey, the Mongo function, MongoDB is a database, we all don't know. To write the function to talk to MongoDB, some people say, hey, quite difficult. So some people wrote a lot of extra like wrapper function on top of MongoDB and they call it Mongoose. So in this case, I'm talking to the database using question.find. And then if I found the question, I return rest. Rest is response. This is the Express.js stuff. Rest.status means return the status 200. Who here knows what a status 200 means?
right? The okay.
Yes. Give you all a simple understanding of status. There's 4 kinds of status. 4 major kind of status. What is it? 200?
201.
404. 404.
200, 300, 400, 500. Okay? Whether 201, 202, 203, doesn't matter. Forget it first. 404, sure. But 200, 300, 400, 500. I give you a very simple way to remember all of this. 200 is?
Post.
Okay, good. 300 is?
No.
I don't understand what's happening. 400 is? You mess up. 500 is I mess up. Means web server mess up. Imagine I'm a web server. So 200 is okay, good. 300 is I don't know how to read this thing. I don't know what you're asking me, so I return you a 300. 400 is you got some error in your side. 500 is oops, I got some error on my side. And this is talking, assuming this is a web server talking to the client. So when you get a 500 message from the web, from Vue.js side, you got this 500 means, oh, web server, something wrong. But if you got 400, means, oh, you got something wrong. You pass in some wrong config or whatever, you got some error. As in the client application, Vue.js got some error. Yeah. So in this case, as a web server, I'm saying, oh, okay, if we got the question, I want to return 200, which is okay, all good, and I send the questions. See how simple this line is? If you do this in Node.js, wow, I got to write a long piece of code, probably 40 lines of code. Here, just 1 line only. You see? Simple. Right? So routes talk to the controller. Within the controller, I got model functions that I can call. So this one, what's the difference? The only difference really here is, number one, I'm talking to a controller called get, okay, or it's a function. By the way, you can call a controller whatever function name you want, like A, B, C, blah, blah, get, foo, whatever you want. In this case, we call it get. The difference now is we got this path whereby he's dot underscore ID. What do you think it means, dot underscore ID? Anyone know?
You need to put in ID, or you need to query the database for an ID.
Yes. Basically, what they say is this. When you want to talk to this route, he's talking to the front-end guy. Hey, front-end guy, if you want to talk to me and you want to talk to this specific route, you must pass in an ID. If you pass in an ID, I will take that ID and I will process that ID. Now, where is he taking the ID? Over here. Request coming in, there's some parameter, in this case an ID. So what you're telling the controller is, hey controller, if the front end guy pass the route and underscore ID, I want you to take the ID and I want you to pop it inside the model to find one, but find by ID. And then I return that specific question. This is a business logic here we are doing in the controller. Do you all get it? Anyone got any questions?
Yeah.
No questions? Okay, good. So by the way, what does this config mean? This config is just another argument that is being passed to the controller. But this controller is not using this config because you don't see it anywhere here. So just discard it. But you can pass an unlimited number of arguments into your controller to do whatever you want. But all it is basically is controller must receive a request and then he must always respond with something. That's it. Receive a request and must always respond with some data. That's all you got to know about controller and route and model. Simple. Take some time to digest, but later we all try, you all get it. Okay. So jumping on to models, because we did not really fully explore the model just now, but model is very simple. It is basically the data structure of the app. Okay, it directly manages data, logic, and rules application. Okay, in this case here, they say it directly manages the logic and rules application. You can, like I said, you can put in models, but some people choose to put in a controller. No right and wrong. No right and wrong. In this case here, was there any logic in the find? No lah. Find means find me stuff. In this case, find one is find me. I just literally directly get reading the database. No logic here. Logic was more of inside here, right? Asking him to do this, do that, do it is inside here. But in this case, they are saying, oh, sometimes you can put logic in the models as well. By the way, this is a definition from Wikipedia lah, right? So it's quite good definition, so I share it as well. And this is how it works. Your browser calls Express and Node.js, and then it goes through Mongoose. Mongoose goes through MongoDB, right? And similarly, same thing, it goes back this way, but the ordering, the data flows from client to web server to Mongoose, Mongoose to Mongo, and Mongo is the one that talks directly to the database. Everyone get this? Cool? Awesome, awesome.
Yep.
So finally, before we end, this is the final 2 slides. I want to just show you the guts of the web server. We did show this the last session. I'm just showing you all again so you all get a better idea. Express.js sits on top of Node.js, right? And this event loop thing is a Node.js event. I got many requests coming in. They are being processed in this event loop because one request coming, so this guy is literally like doing the requests one by one. That's why it's called single thread. He can only process one at a time, but he processes very fast lah, right? And here, whatever request happening jumps straight into Mongoose, and in Mongoose, I got a Mongo driver. Because remember I told you, Mongoose actually sits on top of Mongo. And in Mongo is where we do the actual TCP IP calls to MongoDB. Why do we call this TCP IP? Anyone knows why? What does TCP IP mean?
Network protocol.
Yeah, it's literally a network protocol of TCP is actually what you call the transmission control protocol, right? So it's a very low level layer, but basically he's just saying is because Mongo sometimes they don't use actually I'm not sure why he say TCP IP, but actually it just means HTTP as well, right? But Mongo don't actually use I don't believe he uses HTTP to talk to the MongoDB. He's talking at a lower level than HTTP as well. TCP is, remember, turtles all the way down? HTTP is actually below, HTTP sits on top of TCP IP. So in this case, they're saying that, oh, he's communicating at one level even below HTTP. You all can study this later on yourselves lah, but this is basically the layer stack for internet. HTTP, TCP, they are all part of the OSI model. OSI model is
the 7-layer thing.
Yes, here. So you can see HTTP is the application layer. I believe, there you go, TCP and UDP, transport layer. Okay. Don't have to understand all these things. Just know that internet got layers also. It's turtles all the way down. Just know that. Okay. And finally, last slide. I just want to refresh you all again. MVC. This was an interesting slide because it shows you the ordering of things. Web server, talk to the route, then dispatch to controller. Controller is the brains that control these two guys. And then of course, database here, view, then it returns back to web server. Okay, We got this thing called dispatcher, but don't worry what it is. Doesn't matter. It's just some extra thing. But just want you to understand the flow of logic. Cool? Any questions? If not, let's explore the app together that I want to show you all. Okay. So let me show you all what this app does first. Let me. Okay. Can you all see this? So if I was to run this application, I show you how this application runs. Inside the front end, Vue.js. Once you go inside Vue.js, you can always see what is the commands used to run by the package JSON. You can see that I got 3 commands I can use to run this application: serve, build, and lint. Now, we don't want to lint. Lint means format our application. Formatting, like styling and all that for the code formatting. Building, we can build, but it's for production. We don't want. What we want is to serve. And this serve actually runs this command. But this command is very long. Who wants to remember this thing? So I just remember serve. Simple. So I come here, npm run serve. Then he is starting the Vue.js application. And guess what? This Vue.js application, this Vue CLI service serve actually is using Webpack behind the scenes. But the Webpack, he already do for you automatically. Vue.js make your life easy. He set up all the Webpack for you. Webpack got settings, so I know. Webpack got quite a lot of settings. He automatically set up for you already. That's why you don't see the word Webpack here. But you do if you look at Vue.js, you will see their documentation. It will tell you that he's using Webpack behind the scenes to build the whole app. Build localhost 180.80.80. So I come here, localhost 80.80. You will see as a to-do here running. And you want to see what this bundle thing is all about, right? You see, where is the bundle? What you're seeing here is after the bundle done already. App.js, you see? This is the bundle right here. This is the root of the application. He bundled it to a file called app.js, a very long file. Yeah. Crazy, right? But this is the whole app. Everything required to run your application is bundled inside here.
This is the uglified.
This is not the uglified one actually. You see got spacing. So uglified, 0 space, I know. I'll show you some of them.
So just now the package JSON, was it like a bundle?
This is the bundle. Package JSON is the instructions. The
So
bundle is
bundle.
basically the whole app, everything. Means all these files inside here, your components, your app, your bus, all inside here. Basically, this guy, this to-do app is all of this. Plus Vue.js also all inside here. That's why it's very long. Basically, it's your whole application. Okay? So, that's why he's running only one script, only app.js. I don't have to think about, oh, I need jQuery, I need this, I need that. No, I need Vue. No need. Just app.js. Simple. Right? So, this is the front end. But when we run this, hello. Look at the error. I got connection refused. Why? Because he's trying to talk to the route called to-dos. The route is called to-do route. But right now, he's telling us, hey, what is this route to do? We don't know what is this. Why? Because there is no web server running yet. So now I have to start my back-end server. So remember, you see here, I got front end, now I got back end. I go into the back end. I check the package JSON as well. Look at the scripts, build and start. Start literally means run this command called node app.js. I can run this. I can do it this way. Can, but this is easier like npm run start. So this package JSON, think of it as the instruction manual for how to run and install your app. By the way, this app has dependencies. These are the dependencies over here. So you also know, oh, to run this app, I have to install all these things. So normally you will always run npm install first. And he will install stuff for you. He'll install everything. But I actually already installed, so you can see I have this thing called node modules. Node modules are all the dependencies required to run this application. And then this application has these scripts over here, which is what you use to interact with it, build and start. Okay? The difference between dependencies and dev dependencies is dev dependencies are installed, but only used for development. When you are developing your code, he installed these things. But for the production use case, you just install this one. You don't need these extra things here. This is extra dependencies required for development. That's it. Like linting, formatting your code and all that, he installed this also. Because with that, ESLint, if I come here, let's say I open my models. You see if I do this, auto format for me, right? See, auto fix for me because of the even this thing like this also. Let's say I put a single thing like that. Even this thing, if I save it, see, change to double quotes. Why? Because I got linting formatted inside here already. So to run this application, this is our web server. Now, remember, our web server talks with what?
Okay, so
What does web server communicate with? The models communicate with who?
The
Controller.
database.
Database, right? Now,
Yeah.
how do we start this database? What is this database? Remember, models talk to database. Now, if I go into models, I go into to-do, you can see a keyword here that tells us it's talking database. What's the keyword here?
Required.
Huh?
Mongoose.
Required.
Mongoose. Yeah?
Yeah.
We now know that he is using a MongoDB database because we see the word here, Mongoose. We don't see Redis, we don't see SQL, we don't see Cassandra, we don't see HBase. What we see is Mongoose. So we now know, okay, this application is using MongoDB. So I need to start a MongoDB server, right? Now, starting a MongoDB server, you have to go to documentation and install stuff. But I am being a bit lazy. I'm going to tell you now, and you can go back home and read this. There's a very simple way to start start applications using Docker. Who here has not heard of Docker before? Who here doesn't know what Docker is?
Me.
So why cannot install on Windows 10 or something?
Cannot. That's why I always use Linux. By the way, Docker is a Docker is one of the most powerful tools. 1 billion people have installed Mongo. Basically, all Docker is, and by the way, Docker works on Linux very well. Windows, I think you need Windows Professional.
The subsystem.
Edition. Yeah,
No, I
I'm
think
not
you
sure.
can use subsystem.
Okay, then good. But for those of you that don't know Docker, I'm not going to explain it now. But just think about it this way. To install Mongo, you must do a lot of steps. To install a database, you got to do this. You got to follow along instructions, right? Take 10 minutes, you got to install this, install that. What people say is, don't worry. I install everything for you. I put it inside a nice package. You just got to run the package and install for you automatically. The simplest example of Docker is a windows.exe file. What does .exe do? You double click, he install everything for you, correct? Because he packaged very nicely. You don't have to think about what the instructions to do. He do all the command for you already. This is what Docker does. Docker take the whole Mongo application and he package it inside another sub application, you know. You just install this sub application on your PC. So it doesn't matter whether you use Windows 10, Linux, Ubuntu, Kali Linux, whatever version of operating system you're using, he don't care because he wrapped the whole MongoDB inside another container. This container is like a subsystem lah, very lightweight subsystem. So that's why Docker is very, very nice to use because there's minimal errors lah, you know, because he packaged everything for you very nicely. That's all there is. So now I want to start my web server. I need to start my database. If not, what's the point of web server? No database. So I start my database. I literally, okay, these are some commands you have to learn yourselves when you want to go back, okay? Docker container ls to list my containers. I got no containers being listed now. For me to create my container, I have to run this command here. I go to the MongoDB. I come down here. How to start a Mongo server instance. Docker run -- name some Mongo -d Mongo type. What does this command do? The -d, the -- name, you go and figure out later. You can learn that one. But what I'm telling you now is that this starts the Mongo server. And I already run it earlier already. So if I do Docker container ls-a, I got a lot of container lah, but I started earlier just now. I stopped it 2 hours ago lah. ls-a means show me all the container that is not active. So these are all my non-active containers. So I start this container. It's called name Mongo server. Docker container start Mongo server. And it starts. Now if I do Docker container ls, no -a, just ls alone, it will show me my active container up for 5 seconds. This port tells me that this container is accessible from the port 27017. 0.0.0 just means localhost. So if I come here, remember this one here? Localhost 8080. This is localhost 27017. MongoDB. If I do 27018, nothing happened. Refuse to connect because nothing's happening over there. I must do it specifically on 27017. Tells me it works here. So now I go back to web server. How do I know this web server is talking to the correct Mongo? Let's look at the config file. 27017. Do you see it right there? Now this MongoDB is just a special string that you have to use to. If you want to talk from this, if you want to talk from the web server, talk to MongoDB, you must put this MongoDB string in front. Then localhost 27017. I want to talk to the database called to-dos in the MongoDB server. They name it as to-dos. Okay? And this whole application runs on the app port of 8001. What is this app port? App port, if I go to my app.js, if you scroll down, you will see app.listen on app port. Config.apport. Config.apport. This is an object. This app port runs on okay, this is a ternary operator in JavaScript. This means that if I have an environment variable called app port, then use the environment variable, else default to 8001. So just know that when we run the app.file, we run the whole thing. By the way, let's take a look at this app.file. I got a lot of stuff here. Don't have to worry about it for now. Just know that I'm using Express. I have my routes. So I take my express.use on the to-do route. I can do some sub route in there. So if I go to my to-dos and I go to the route, if you see the routes over here, which is this file, so I go to routes, these are my subpaths within the to-do. App.put, app.delete, app.post, app.get. So if you all see here, the routes here, let's say I want to post a to-do. You go to create to-do. You all can see he's calling the route here. This .http, remember we call through HTTP always. Post this route called to-do, which is this to-do here, no? Right? If I want to, so if I go back to the, let me see something. This HTTP post to this root path to do, and then basically I get the response. Once I got the response, I run this function called clear the to do and refresh the to do. Let me run this so we get a better idea. Now that I started my database, npm run. What was it in the package JSON here?
Start.
Start. Now I can start. So now, if I come back to the here, put it inside. Now I want you all to see this. I go to the app here. I refresh, okay? Look, I type in something here. Watch this down here. I made a post and then I got a get. Another one. Enter. Do you see post and get? Do you see it? Hey, I wonder whether can you all type inside here or not? Let me try and give someone control. Kelvin, I give you control. You see you can type in there or not?
All right.
Oh, remote control. Oh, you got a keyboard also. Wow. Okay, you try now. Wow, this Zoom very powerful.
Can.
Okay. And enter.
Enter.
There you go. Correct.
Wow.
Hey, you try and press Alt Tab, Kelvin.
Alt Tab.
Yeah. Can you see it?
I think it works exactly on.
Yeah.
Alt Tab. Oh yeah.
You try and type now, Kelvin. Try and type stuff. Oh, this powerful way. Okay, Kelvin. You can type, right? Actually.
No.
Wait,
Well, Zoom is powerful, bro.
Powerful lah, bro. Powerful lah.
I thought Meetup also can do the same thing.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. Kelvin, try and type.
What function is this?
This is sharing you share your whole keyboard, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's working.
Powerful lah. Okay.
Wow.
Oh yo, scary way. Kelvin take over my whole thing already. Okay, cannot already. So, anyways, now as y'all can see here, this is where we can do it, right? Sweep windows. Post
just want to,
and a get. Huh?
we just want to ask, right? What it does here is actually like posting. It is posting content into the database and database showing back the content. Is it? It's like adding.
I am talking to database. So he firstly made a post to update the database, and then he called the database to get all the information here again.
Okay, understand.
That's how you can see it being updated here, because I write to database and then I call database. Hey database, get me all the to-dos again so I can list it out. That's what he's doing. So you see now if I refresh the page, everything's still loaded there. Why? Because he get to do. You see? He is getting the to-do from database. Without database on, everything will be stopped. You see now if I stop the database, I stop this. My database here, my Mongo server, I stop it. Docker container stop Mongo server. I stop the database. Now I run the server, I run the web server again. Number one, there'll be an error here, okay? No connection. But when I come here, I refresh, nothing. Nothing also, cannot hit enter also. Why? Because he cannot talk to database anymore already. Yeah?
So now only the server for the front end is working.
Only the front end partially working. Okay, this web server also, I mean this front end is a demo app lah. But normally for production proper app, even though no connection to web server, it still can load, but he just like save in the browser only. Until you got internet access or the web server working, then he sync everything again. This is what you call offline first applications lah. But in this case, this is a dummy app lah. This dummy app, if the database got error or whatever, he cannot function. See, I cannot even press enter. I press enter, nothing happened because the back end not working lah. That's why I got error.
Because the logic is in the controller, which is in the back end.
Cannot load. No, nothing here because he load the data is calling web server only. But in this case, the web server has no database, so he cannot call anything also. Because there's no database running here.
Okay.
So if I start the database again, Docker container, you see, if let's say I just stop the server lah, I stop the database, I stop the server also, you will now see, right? Immediately got error appear. Just now no error, now got error. Error, cannot even connect to web server also. Got error appear. Yeah. So if I start the database, Docker I start the Mongo server and I run the web server. Now, if I refresh the page, booyah, everything there. Okay, so this is the create to do. When we run a function create, it call this function, and this function make this HTTP call. Remember HTTP call to the back end. Then he clear the to do and refresh the to do. So this is one thing, calling the function here. Now I want to list the to do is another component. What he's doing here. There is some extra stuff here going on, but basically what you need though is this. The moment this component is loaded, the moment you load the web page only, at the created part, he run these two functions. Firstly is fetch the to do, whereby he make a get request at the route again, the home route. Then with the response, he populate these .todos with response.data. Okay, so that is fetch the to do done. And then he listen to do events. Another method here called listen to do events. He looks at the bus. The moment the bus.on has a refresh to do event happen, he run this function called fetch to do. What is this bus event refresh to do coming from? Over here. The moment I add a to do, I immediately refresh to do. Refresh to do is another function in the method section whereby he say, I emit this refresh to do keyword on the bus. And this list to do component was listening to this bus, and the moment this event happened, he run this function. So you can see how they are all interrelated to each other. I know in our brain might be a bit mind brain a bit low listening to this, but think about it as they are interacting with each other through the message bus. So if you were to draw out this thing, or you were to visualize it, just remember it was like this earlier. Where was it? Remember this. They were all communicating each other through events, emitting events. Through bus. Bus.on refresh to do. Then you got your create, where you got your bus.emit the to do. These are special keywords. Emit on, these are listening and publishing to the bus. That's it. So this is your front end. HTTP calls, your bus, your components, and yes, of course, your main app. This is your root application. And why is this your root? Because when you go to the main file is where you define everything. And your app is the root. You can only have one app. And in one app, you can only have one HTML file, div, and then the create to do and list to do is all happen within this app. And this is the root. This is your bus. As you can see the bus, there's nothing in there. There's no state also. It is just a dumb channel for you to pass messages back and forth among the components. That's it. That's it. That's all about the front end. And then we go to the back end. We look at the main file first, the app.js. Always look at the package JSON to see what file to start. In this case, start node app.js. So you must guess that app.js is the starting file or the root file. In this case, we got all these stuff here, cores, logger. These are dependencies to run this app. For example, logger is the dependency is called Morgan. What does logger do? Logger gives us it gives us all this stuff. Without logger, I won't get any of this. So that's logger. Cores is something else which you all can read up yourselves. So in this case, I got config route app, and then I do my mongoose connect. So in this case here, I'm taking my web server. My web server is using all these functions, the logger, the cores. Then he's using all this extra stuff. You don't have to know what these things are. You can read this up on your own time. Just know that he's using the app.use/to-dos. On this /to-do path, I have this route path. And this routes path was like what we discussed here. App.get/get this. App.post at the home path, you do this. This is your logic here. App.delete ID. Remember the ID earlier we were talking about? Request.params ID. Then he's running some logic to talk to database. And then finally, you must always rest.status 200. Over here, so on. Rest.status. You see? This is another one, a different way. Rest.json. It's a different function by Express. You got a few ways, rest.json, rest.status.json also can. You can send a status code first, then send a JSON. In this case, it's just sending a JSON without a status code. You can actually still do this. You can still do rest.status 200.json. You can do that as well, but in this case, it's just this way, yeah. So these are all my routes. And then in this case, actually these routes, he lump in the controller also lah. The controller get lumped in together, these routes. Sometimes routes, they can be, because sometimes with route, right, you got multiple controllers that want to do multiple things lah, right? In this case, this is like something like a controller already lor, where in this case you talk to the to-do repository. This your create, your find by ID. Sorry, no, this is actually something like a controller. Sorry. But your routes here are calling the controller. In this case, the controller is created as a class lah. It's created as a class. And in this class, you got your create, your find all, your find by ID, delete, update by ID. So then within here is where you call your models. and then you can see a to-do.models. The models are in here. And you can see the models are very dumb, very simple. It doesn't look very complex because they are just literally reading, updating, deleting stuff. That's it, only. It's not very complex. And that's it. That's all there is to the back end. So this is how we try and figure out the front and back. I want you guys to go back and really study this code, play around with it. I believe y'all can get this. And if y'all can get this, y'all are a big, big step ahead. In the future, we will not be touching this anymore. We're moving onward outside Vue.js towards deploying code, talking how do we actually deploy this to a web server online. We're moving away from Vue already. This is, from here on, you have to go back and figure out and learn out on yourselves. But what you got here are the strong fundamentals to build from then on moving forward. Okay?
Ming, check something.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically, right, when we view create that time, right, there's just the usual init file only, right?
No, Vue
like
create will give you a lot of these files already. Vue create gives you all these files actually. Some of these files are Docker file, no lah, but he'll give you a lot of these files here.
Yeah, like package, JSON, all those.
Yes, he'll give you all that.
Yeah, but the back end and the front end, all this is like how we structured, like design our apps, and then we.
Actually, front end should be a separate GitHub repository. Back end should be separate.
Mm.
In this case, I put them inside one single folder called Node.js to-do list, which I will share with you all later on GitHub. If you all do not know, GitHub is where we host our code online, like storing our code online. So front end is, but yes, in terms of how you structure your backend code, it's like this. There are many ways to do it, but this is very simple and very straightforward. Config file, you got a model file. Then you can call this your repository, or you can call this your controller. You call it whatever you want, but I just leave it as the repository. Then you got your routes. That's simple stuff, right? Because if you look back at the documentation here, if you look at the design of this model, controller, view, routes, which is all here, basic enough. Of course, if you see some people's code, maybe their routes, they got longer file, they got more models, a lot. There's just one model to do, very simple. Sometimes they got a lot of files, but this is the basic already, which is good enough.
Okay.
Cool. Anyone got any more questions? I think if no, then we will kind of wrap it up here. I mean, I want to go through introduction, everyone, so to introduce the new people. But anyone got any questions they want to ask, share, discuss? What do you think about this?
I think we have to go through the whole thing first,
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to go through it. Right? This is something that you have to take your time, really run the front end, run the back end. I'm recording this session so you guys can review back again.
Nice.
But yes, run the front and run the back. And remember, okay, this Docker stuff, we will learn it in the future, but if you can learn it now yourself, is also good enough already. And it's based on what I wrote just now, that command Docker start, Docker. You have to go to the Docker hub here, and you got some instructions for you here. You got to pull the image, and then you run these instructions here. That's it. Anyone got any more questions for now?
Nope.
Cool. Anyways, let's just have a very short intro since we got a bunch of, I think Kais is new. Why don't Kais?
There's Lip Kang as well.
Lip Kang as well. Sorry, Lip Kang. Why don't you guys do a short introduction of yourselves?
Oh yeah, I should start. So my name is Kais, and I'm from Myanmar. So I went to the Recode's fundamental programming course with Derek. So yeah, we both learned it, and since then I've been coding, and you know, self-coding, of course. Then you know, I've taught myself JavaScript back in 2017. So like I have some previous background programming, a little bit of knowledge on how, especially front end, but not back end yet. So I'm planning to learn more about this back end in the future. So yeah, it's nice to meet you guys and see you. Good luck.
Awesome.
Nice. Thanks, Kai.
Nice.
Good to have you with us, bro. Lipkang, what about you, bro?
Lipkang, you're mute.
Yeah, his mic is having a problem.
Oh, mic problem. Okay.
Oh, yeah, he's typing now. Yeah.
Yep.
1 year experience as programmer. Awesome, awesome. And what are you doing now, Lipkang? I guess typing is gonna be tough, right?
We call him Kang Yi or Lip Kang actually.
Kang Yi.
Kang Yi. Is it?
Okay.
Oh, you say
okay.
my name is Lipkang.
Oh, Lip
Kang,
Kang.
Kang.
Okay.
Okay, studying
Cool,
JavaScript.
cool. Studying JavaScript,
Cool.
nice.
Nice.
Awesome, awesome. So if no one has any more questions, I think today has been quite tiring for everyone because you got to try and brain a lot of stuff. But I believe you guys have the big picture, which is my key thing, the big picture to understand the concepts of everything. You can go and do the details yourselves, but the big picture was my key thing lah. I'll give you a takeaway. Okay, so if no one has any more questions, let's call it a day for today, and we will keep in touch again on WhatsApp as well. We'll chat again next week.
Bro, Lipkang has a question.
I think
Lip
Kang has a, yeah.
But Vue.js built on
mentioned-
TypeScript, right? No. So if you guys know, TypeScript is basically where you specify your like this lah. Show example, var name equals.
It's a format, right?
Yes, that is JavaScript right here. I send a message to everyone. TypeScript is var name string equals John. You gotta specify your types. Now, Vue has the ability to integrate with TypeScript if you want to. But Vue was originally done, like everything else, it's already done on JavaScript. TypeScript is often an extension of it. Cool?
Oh.
Yeah.
If you want me to suggest something, my personal experience, I don't really TypeScript. There's a learning curve to it. You can spend time learning it, but you can get a lot of the benefits of TypeScript if you do JS doc ts check. Wait, I recommend this. You guys can check it out here. Oh, it's wait, I sent you another link. Yeah, this one, you can use this link instead. Easier, another one. But basically, you get all the benefits of type checking without using TypeScript. Because TypeScript syntax, you got to really, you know, put the word string la, integer la, object, sometimes a bit slower in development. But it's very useful. It's actually very good to check your code. So if people say, okay, I want to do JavaScript, but I want to get this checking feature, then you use this link I give you. JS doc and TS check. Very powerful. I love it a lot, actually. Very nice. You guys can check it out yourselves. But cool. Everyone okay?
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Awesome. Then if that's the case, let's call it a day. We'll see everyone next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Ming. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
good week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.